Thank you for inviting me to the SAREP Conference. Unfortunately, I can't be there today in person, so I decided to have a video of my speech sent to you. And I'd like to speak about the importance of this project and the strategic value of this project for the German industry. Peter Hack and his team has laid out a vision, a detailed vision, which becomes reality in a way that this is the first time a bioeconomy, a sustainable bioeconomy, has a chance to create synergistic effects for an economy, for two economies, German European economy as well as the Mauritanian industry. So please allow me to come to my first slide, which outlines the overview over the project. You know, we are changing the landscape to sequester CO2, have a climate impact. We create energy, sweet water, and of course, we grow food and biomass. And this biomass is the base for a circular economy, which we are trying to lay out. So it's offsetting carbons by carbon credits and CO2 sequestering. We create timber and other biomass. We can create out of that green fuels and of course agricultural products. And of course from the brine of the desalination we can potentially create magnesia. 2 million hectares is something like a potential of 400,000 jobs created. CO2 scale is gigatons, and we'll see the calculation for even that, what we do roughly, and I think there will be a lot of other speakers today talking about that, and of course everything will be based on renewable energy. If we go to the next slide, we see the current situation today. Our Mauritanian industry is based on iron ore, methane gas and fish, and that's a pure export scheme, but there's no circularity or real sustainability in that. And the idea needs to be for a long-term partnership to create a circular system, which of course is including sustainable technology and sustainable products. And if we go one level deeper, of course, that's something like biomass products, energy, and raw materials going from Mauritania to Europe and Germany in a CO2 reduction and wealth creation circular economy. And on the other hand, we produce in that project water. We develop technologies to the next level, like desalination technology, wind and solar power, and we'll see that today in the conference as well. We'll also go to the next level. And of course, the agroforest concepts where, of course, a lot of people would have high interest into. If we go to the overview of how that would look like, we are talking about a 2 million hectare project. And if we would go really to that scale, that would have a real impact. You know, our agroforest project in Africa can offset roughly 10% of Germany's industrial CO2 emissions. 10% is a big number, really, of one of the biggest economy in Europe. You know, the overall emissions of the German industry is around roughly 160 million tons CO2 in the year 2024. And if you think about an offsetting, which comes from the right side of that picture, with agroforestry, with an average maybe 10 to 16 tons CO2 per hectare on full scale, you can sequester or capture roughly 10 to 16 million tons CO2. And of course, that's only possible if you create jobs, food, and biodiversity to have a stable ecosystem. So if you compare this one-on-one, 10% of this ecosystem is really, this ecosystem is offsetting 10% of the German industry CO2 emissions. And if we want to go to look into that from a money perspective, we have to look into the CO2 value, how CO2 costs on the ETF has developed over the time. And if we would take a 2026 value, which is 82 euros so far this year, and we would round it up for 80 euros per ton CO2, you would come up with these 16 million tons in an average of 1,200 million, 1.2 billion euros annually as an emission trading potential. And if you look further down the road, and we anticipate, and there's a lot of literature out and prognosis for the future, that will end up in a value between 140 to 200 euro per ton CO2 in the time frame 2030, 2035, with all these uncertainties. You could easily double that. So we are talking about more than 2 billion euros trading potential, CO2 trading potential in the future. So it's absolutely essential that whatever we create, this potential, this economic value of this project, annual economic value of this project, can be realized in a way that it can be made accountable and it can be made scalable for further growth. If we are looking to the prerequisites of a sustainable circular economy, of course, and I think that's a given here, we have a clear shared vision of the future. We need a stable political situation, otherwise we'll have no people coming to invest. We need a digital infrastructure to enable AI tools and, of course, the traceability and everything which we need to grow the business. We need a long-term partnership. There's no way out. Each of the system wouldn't work without the other one. And of course, we need stability of invested assets. So things like crime rates and something like that need to be at a very low level. And of course, to be successful, the baseline of every economic things we do need to be a competitive price and cost structure. The key necessities to be able to scale these projects are we need to have a nature-based solution, a circular economy, which I think is really given, low energy prices and a resilient infrastructure. And then we need to balance really profitability versus resilience. And I think this is one of the key challenges if we run that project in the future. Let me go one level deeper for the prerequisites for the scalability. And scalability is one of the key factors to get additional investments in and to make sure that this project is really going to work. As we are talking about CO2 trading and as we're talking about the financial schemes, we need to really look into high quality, reliable and traceable data. We need to follow the standardized formats. And of course, we need to have, besides these data, we need to have to get all the money for the trading schemes and to grow the food and the forestry, agroforestry systems. We need to base all of that on community and partnerships, on technology and infrastructure. We have a lot of people with brilliant technology in this room today. And of course, we need to look into sustainability and resources to have a stable funding model, long-term institutional anchoring, clear governance and roles, efficient processes and operations. And of course, that minimum is that we get the right visibility and outreach a clear value proposition within our, what I would call, use case of our circular economy. You know, it's a project in a bigger economy. So we are like a use case. And of course, quality and trust to make sure that whatever we do is transparent, is trusted, and that we are in compliance with legal obligations and the policy framework. So a sustainable partnership between the European Union, especially with Germany and Mauritania, is really something for the benefit of both parties. You know, at one side you have a lot of contribution from Mauritanians, and of course you have a partnership which would give sustainable investments and a long-term cooperation to also allow circular economy in Europe. In the center, of course, we have flow value to Europe, and we have Europeans' contribution on Mauritania. And I think you can see in this picture very nicely that we need to have a balanced approach between both parties here. So let me conclude. A sustainable long-term partnership will provide synergies, because this is the first project I know, thanks to Peter Heck and his team, that has an economic model that is beneficial to both countries. Mauritania is, in itself, it's unique, best conditions to set up such a pilot project. And the vision of a sustainable and circular economy based on agroforestry and industrial solutions create the biomass that will be needed in Germany and Europe. The fact of the project is the potential offset of 10% of the industrial CO2 emissions in Germany, you know, equaling about 1.2 billion euros in CO2 credits. The prerequisites for scaling are reached. This is unique in comparison to all other projects I know. This project is a milestone in fighting climate change by doing something really great. Thank you very much.